Hello world, Krista here with Books and Jams, and today I'm going to be telling you about all of the books that I read in October. I had a really good reading month in October. I finished 9 books, which is kind of crazy. It's a lot to read all in one month, but I really enjoyed most of them. So let me just jump right in and tell you what I thought about the books that I read this month, well, last month. So the first book that I finished in October is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And while I really ended up loving this book at the end, I also had a little bit of trouble getting into it. At the beginning, it was a little slow for me. It's written from 2 different time periods, or multiple different time periods. So that kind of took away from jumping right in and really getting captivated by the story. However, I did love the storyline of these 2 magicians pitted against each other, and they each choose a contestant, or they each choose somebody to have this magician's war, in a sense, against each other. And the circus is the setting for that to play out. The circus is almost like its own character in the story. It is very atmospherically written, beautifully written. You really feel with all of your senses the different aspects of the circus, and it's just lovely. And it's about the circus that shows up at night in different places, and the characters that are involved in the circus, and you kind of learn how it works as the story goes on. There is a love story that's intricately woven through the whole thing. However, it doesn't feel like the story is focused on the romance. It's just woven through the whole thing really beautifully. I really enjoyed this book, and I would highly recommend reading it. After The Night Circus, I read The Sacred Lies of Manoa by Stephanie Oakes. It's about this girl, Manoa, who grows up most of her childhood as a part of a cult. Horrible things happen to her there, and she is always one that kind of questions and doesn't just accept what she's been told. Right at the beginning of the book, she escapes from the cult, ends up at a juvenile detention facility where the majority of the book that's where she is. I really love the friendships that she develops while she's there. You learn about what happened to her through her conversations with the one detective that she gradually has to decide if she's going to trust or not to tell all of what happened to her. So it's a beautifully sad story. It was a very quick read. I enjoyed this book, but it wasn't my favorite of the month, and it was very sad and a little hard and pretty gruesome at points. So The Sacred Lies of Manoa was my second book. Then I next read another book that was in my try a chapter tag, and this is Junebug by Chris Fabry. And while it does say on the front here that it's sort of a Les Mis retelling, it's not a complete Les Mis retelling, and if you're looking for that when you read this book, you will probably be disappointed. But if you just think about the Jean Valjean and Cosette storyline, that kind of father-daughter bond that gets developed even though they're not exactly father-daughter, that is exactly what this book is about. So in this book, the character Daddy and the little girl Junebug, he calls, you learn right in the first chapter that he is not her father. She sees her face on a missing children's picture in Walmart and realizes that there's more to her story than what she knows. And they live in an RV and travel around the country. She's gotten to do lots of different things. I think she's 9 or 10 when the story takes place. So you don't really know what happened. And for most of the book, you are trying to decipher whether her father is a good guy or a bad guy. You don't really know what happened yet. But if you know Les Mis, then you'll kind of figure out along the way what's going on. But I enjoyed this story. It is a Christian fiction, so there are elements of faith that are brought in. So if that's not something that you like, then be prepared that that's a big part of this book as well. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was quick, easy, sweet, also sad, heartwarming at the end. Yeah, it's a good read. After that, I finished an audiobook that I was listening to, A Torch Against the Night. I loved this series so far. I guess there's more coming. And there were a few moments that I was on the edge of my seat. I would take my lunch out to my car so I could listen, because I only listen to audiobooks in the car. I live a half a mile from my work, so my commute is about 5 minutes. I should probably walk more, but I don't. So I listened to audiobooks in the car, and this one captivated me. The narrator did so good. Because this is a sequel, I can't really tell you too much about what happens in this book. However, I can tell you that Sabata here can write a villain like nobody's business. There are multiple characters in this story that you just love to hate. They're evil, they're horrible, and the narrator got their voice so creepy. It was fantastic. And there was a plot twist that I did not see coming. I was not prepared for. I showed up at a friend's house like, oh my word, you have to read this book. It's so crazy. So I really thoroughly enjoyed listening to this on audiobook. I don't know if I'd have the same experience reading it just because the narrator did such a good job as I listened to it. So I really, really loved A Torch Against the Night. After A Torch Against the Night, I read A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. This is the first in the Gemma Doyle trilogy. I believe it's a trilogy. In this story, Gemma Doyle lives in India for the beginning part of her life, and she really desires to go to London. And then a tragedy happens in India, and her family sends her to a finishing school in London where the rest of the story takes place. There are elements of the occult in this and witchcraft in a sense, I guess, witches, paranormal stuff. I guess you would call it supernatural, right? I didn't love this book, but I did read it through very quickly. It's kind of a coming of age story as well, as she learns about herself and who she is and the friendships and relationships that she builds at the finishing school, and as she learns about her family and her past. So it's kind of a coming of age story to a degree. I don't love books. I don't love books about the supernatural or the occult in any way. So I didn't love it. I don't know that I will continue with the rest of this series. Probably not. I did my first buddy read, my first booktube buddy read. I have books that I read with my book club here in real life, but I did my first booktube buddy read this month. And I read with Sharon, who does not have a YouTube channel, but she watches booktube all the time and comments wonderfully on all my videos. And so she and I together read Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. And she, I think, liked this more than I did. I enjoyed it. It was an interesting story. It has photographs in it, as I'm sure that you know. This is about a boy whose grandfather dies quite early in the book. His grandfather told him stories about this home that he lived in when he was younger, this home for peculiar children. And the boy kind of begins to think that they are fairy tales or made up stories or dreams or whatever. He doesn't fully believe his grandfather, but then when his grandfather dies in a horrible way, he wants to explore or go see this home that his grandfather used to talk about. So he convinces his parents, his father, to take him to this island off the coast of Wales where this home is. And it's the adventures of him searching for the home. He finds it, and there's a little bit of a time trick that happens in this story. I don't want to tell you too much in case you haven't read it yet. I thought by looking at the pictures that it was going to be much creepier than it is, and I'm really glad that it's not, because I don't love creepy books. So I'm glad that it wasn't as creepy as I thought originally. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure that I'm going to continue with the rest of the series. I believe there are 3 of them. But for now, I thought it was a good read, and I was thrilled to do the buddy read with Sharon. After Miss Peregrine's, I read Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I had to return it to the library, so here is the picture. This, I know, has such mixed reviews. It's written by J.K. Rowling and 2 other guys that I just don't remember, and I did not write down. I should probably have looked that up. Sorry to the 2 other, Jack Thorpe, and I forget the 3rd one. I will put it down in the down bar because it's important to acknowledge that they are part of the authoring of this book. So if you don't know, this is written as a script, and it has very mixed reviews here on BookTube. There are some who really love it, and there are some who really don't like it. And I'm sort of in the middle. I enjoyed it for what it was. I knew it was going to be a script. I knew that it had mixed reviews, but I still wanted to read it, and it obviously it doesn't have the same heartwarming, draw you in, character building, all that the Harry Potter series is wonderful for. This does not have all of that. However, it does bring in some of the same characters. It's a very fast-paced story. There's so much that happens in this play, and it all happens so quickly, and because it's a play, it doesn't really get fleshed out very much. So I think maybe that's why people don't love it. I think if this story that's in the play was fleshed out more in a novel form, people might like it more. But because it's a play, you're kind of reading stage cues, you're reading just mainly dialogue. So it makes it go by really quickly, and there's not a lot of character development, there's not a lot of scene setting. It just goes through really quickly. But for what it is, I thought it was a cute story and I really enjoyed it. This month I also read Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, and this is a mystery about a woman named Lo, who is one of the reporters that goes on the Aurora for its maiden voyage. So it's first time, it's almost like a yacht. It's big, smaller than a cruise ship, bigger than a yacht, I guess. There are, I think, 10 or 11 rooms. 10 because she's in 9, and then in cabin 10 she sees what she hears and sees what she thinks is someone being murdered. And so it sets Lo up as an unreliable narrator, but she's not only unreliable, she's super annoying. I really didn't like her. And this is probably my least favorite book that I read this month. I didn't care for it. I didn't care for any of the characters. I didn't care if she was telling the truth or not. I didn't care if she really saw someone die or not. I just didn't care. I don't know that I'd recommend it. If you like mysteries or thrillers, I don't know that it was predictable. I didn't know what was happening. Like many other mysteries, you don't know who to trust and you don't know who's suspect and who's not. I didn't, because I don't read that many mysteries, but maybe it's predictable for other people. I don't know, I just didn't care about it that much, so it didn't really draw me in. Something else about this book that really bothered me is the language. There just was a lot of swearing, and I understand that that's how a lot of people this day and age speak. I just find it annoying in books and lazy, and so I didn't like that at all. Finally, I finished at the very beginning of November, like on the second day of November, so I'm still gonna count it for October. I finished Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and I had to return this to the library because it was way overdue. But I loved this book. I loved it. I knew going into it that although it's often just called a heist story, there is a heist, but I also knew that the first half would be different from that. And a lot of people were disappointed by that because they were expecting this big heist story. So I knew going into it that the beginning was going to be a lot more character development. And there are 6 main characters in Six of Crows. And because so much time is spent on helping you get to know them, I really enjoyed that, and I really loved them. They're kind of anti-heroes. They all are living in part of a gang in the kind of the Barrel, it's called, this part of the city that is where all the casinos and brothels and it's like the Dregs. The Dregs is the name of their band, but the name of their band. The Dregs. The Dregs is the name of their gang in this kind of slum-ish area of the city where houses and buildings are very close together and there's lots of alleyways and dark and creepy, and these people that are the main characters are gambling, and 2 of them were former prostitutes, and yeah, just different aspects of these characters that are not what I would typically love in a character. However, they're just beautiful, and the relationships they learn to build with each other, and as they slowly gain trust for each other. And then you get to the heist and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it just was so fast paced. I even found the first part paced really well, even though it was mainly on character development and kind of building this team of people who are going to go and do the heist that happens at the end of the book. I really felt like it was paced well, it was well written, and I really came to love these characters. However, it ended on a total cliffhanger. It ended at a point and you're like, what? That's the end. So of course I had to get Crooked Kingdom, and it's November 8th today, and I've already read Crooked Kingdom because I had to dive right into that as soon as I finished Six of Crows. I'm really glad that it's a duology and that it's not a series, because yeah, I just loved that it was duology. Here's the books that I read this month, plus the 3 that I had to return to the library. I would love to hear if you've read any of these and chat with you about them down in the comments. I would love to hear what you're reading currently that you're loving. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!